A tornado outbreak looking more likely this weekend. The latest details in today's video. Welcome in, everybody. Great to see you on this Wednesday. And unfortunately, today we're talking about severe weather with that chance increasing, I think, for a tornado outbreak between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with Saturday potentially being the peak of things. And I'll tell you, the trends have not been our friend over the past couple of days in the model guidance and really just in all of the data that we're seeing for this storm system. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Great way to stay up to date as we continue to track this thing and any other severe weather producers that may be on the way this spring. Also, thank you to our channel members. Appreciate you folks. And if you would like to become a member, go ahead and hit the join button down below next to the subscribe button. All right, folks, with that said, let's dive right into things because we do have a lot to discuss today. And I am on a bit of a time crunch this morning as I've got a very early morning with activities later on, including an exam. So if you're in the mood for wishing luck, definitely wish me luck on that one. But let's go and start talking about the weather. All right, so you can see next to me here, the latest run of our GFS American model showing that storm system, same one we've been talking about. You can just see that crazy low pressure values there getting down into the mid 970s before a secondary area of low pressure develops. And I think that's why Saturday has trended so much higher. It's that second area of low pressure that really reinforces our kinematics and our thermodynamics, meaning instability rises and so does wind shear there for that second day of the event. Now, Friday's still going to bring its own severe weather. I think Sunday will as well. But really, I think Saturday is going to be the day we really need to watch for that severe weather potential. Now, briefly, what's going on there, or what's going on out there right now? Well, we do have an area of spin located over the Four Corners currently that I am watching for severe weather potential today and even into tomorrow. Now, this one, not a huge deal, but still going to be strong enough to bring some severe weather through portions of the southern plains and potentially even into the southeastern United States by tomorrow afternoon. And we'll time that out here for you in just a moment. But let's take a look at our current alerts out there. And the map definitely starting to fill in from west to east across the lower 48. Another beautiful day here east of the Mississippi and really just east of the Rockies in general, outside of a couple of those storms we're going to talk about. You get out west, though, that next storm knocking on the doorstep, moving in really as early as tomorrow. And because of that, winter storm warnings in pink, winter weather advisories in purple, we've got wind advisories in beige, and then plenty of red flag warnings out here into Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, and Texas. All that wind that's going to get kicked up, combined with that dry air getting pulled out of the desert southwest, fire concerns will be a real thing, I think, Thursday and probably even into Friday as well here over portions of that part of the country. So definitely need to watch out for that. Going to be a fire threat, a severe weather threat, a winter weather threat. We're really going to fit every type of weather and every season over the next couple of days throughout the end of this week. Now, let's break down the near-term threat here. We do have a slight risk up this afternoon for southeastern Oklahoma all the way into Texarkana, Sulphur Springs, Shreveport, Longview, Tyler, even Dallas getting clipped here in that. And the good news, if we look at the tornado threat, not huge. It's a 2% risk, so that's as low as they can issue with it not being a nothing risk. So that's the good news. The bad news is I do think wind and hail here could be a problem. In fact, you see this area that is hatched, or it has those black lines kind of doing the dashes. That means we could see significant hail today in this region, and that's not the end of it. Tomorrow, another day that we could see a little bit of hail here through Birmingham, Montgomery, Dothan, Albany, Columbus, Meridian. And then tomorrow's tornado threat, even a smaller area, but watching Montgomery, Selma, back down towards Dothan, and even into the Troy area and back down towards Talladega for the potential of maybe an isolated tornado. But I think really hail and wind going to be the main threat today and tomorrow. And you can see that here as we time it out on our latest model guidance. Here is the high resolution rapid refresh model. This is this afternoon or this evening, really about 5 p.m. Eastern. You're saying, all right, well, where are the storms? Well, here they come. Watch it right after sunset during the evening hours. It's about 8 p.m. Central Time. A cluster of storms begin to develop right in that threat area from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, I'll mention we have some pretty big disagreement in the models on this threat. This is the high resolution rapid refresh. If you look at the NAM, a pretty different looking threat. The NAM's not nearly as excited about these storms getting going. So the big question is convective initiation. Do the storms even start in the first place, or does our cap kind of hold? this back from really forming into anything at all. Well, the HER shows storms forming. The NAM shows some, but just not quite as impressive. But we're going to track this complex. Again, this is this evening and really overnight tonight. That's where we could see the hail, the strong wind, and even an isolated tornado crosses through Texarkana. Almost looks like a bit of a derecho. It's not quite a derecho, but definitely an MCV, or MCS rather, mesoscale convective complex of storms here that we're watching that will kind of work on through that region and eventually get into Louisiana, Arkansas by about the midnight hour, and then kind of dies off a little bit during the evening as we lose that daylight heating. And then notice another flare up. Here's tomorrow morning. We've got some showers, again, some hail possible. And then we get to tomorrow afternoon, and another complex of storms tries to get going into Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, even down into the panhandle of Florida. So definitely watching that for tomorrow afternoon, and then that kind of dies off again by tomorrow overnight. So definitely kind of diurnal swings here in the severe weather threat. Afternoons will be the peak, or really the evenings into the early overnight, and then dying down past the midnight hour both days, but need to watch it for severe weather potential. All right, so that gets us through the little thing today. What about coming on down the road? Now, here is our mid-level energy map here by Thursday afternoon. You see this area of the southeast? That's what I just talked about. That's what produced that severe weather, or at least is likely to produce severe weather today and tomorrow. Behind it, a big old trough with a lot of energy out west. That's the troublemaker we need to watch. This is the one that could potentially bring that powerful storm with, again, a severe weather outbreak. I think likely a tornado outbreak. Odds of that are increasing here from the Great Plains through Dixie Alley and even into potentially the mid-Atlantic. So you can kind of time it out here. This is by Friday afternoon. I mean, folks, just a tremendous amount of lift and energy in the atmosphere. So Friday, I think, will have the most kinematics probably of any day. However, instability could be lacking, and that's going to help us out a little bit on Friday. But then we get to Saturday, and notice what happens. A whole new area develops. So here's our original area. On the backside of that, that's where we're going to watch for that blizzard condition possibility. But then a new kind of reinvigoration of this trough by Saturday. Another day of a ton of wind energy and lift in the atmosphere, but this time closer to the Gulf, therefore closer to our instability source and likely higher CAPE values or thunderstorm fuel by Saturday afternoon. And then we'll time it out further into Sunday, and you can see that whole mesh just pushes east, and again, just a lot of wind energy and lift. And again, instability becomes the question by Sunday. All right, so what could this look like on radar? Well, here's the latest GFS. Starting Thursday afternoon, this is when things get going. A whole lot of snow back out into the Rockies in blue there. We've got rain in green, just a big old mess in general for folks in that region. And then we get into Friday afternoon. Pause it here. Here's our strong storm, 975 millibars, in that range, give or take a couple millibars. That's going to kick up the wind. That's going to kick up the precipitation. And watch by Friday evening, a complex of strong storms begin to develop from Iowa back down into Missouri. And then you don't see a lot into Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. But I'll tell you, I think we could get storms down here as well. That's where we're going to have a little bit more instability at the surface. The question will be, do we get enough lift to kind of break through the cap or break through the layer that's kind of keeping a lid on the atmosphere, if you will? If that happens, then really this could be an entire area of severe storms to watch. And then on the backside, by the evening of Friday into Saturday, that winter storm begins to unfold into the eastern Dakotas, into western Minnesota. This is Saturday morning, and you're seeing the low pressure up here pull all the way up into the Midwest, and you're thinking, all right, well, how are we going to get a big tornado outbreak down south? Well, here's how. That second trough does its magic, and another surface low forms. Check out Saturday afternoon. I mean, folks, pressure goes from about 1,000 millibars to 986 within the span of, 6 to 12 hours. It's pretty crazy stuff. And just this amount of wind energy this close to the Gulf this time of year, that's just a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, I think that's what could unfold on Saturday. We have the potential for a big time tornado outbreak. And I'm talking strong tornadoes, those EF3s, maybe an EF4 or two. The question remains to be, though, what's the storm mode and what is instability? All the ingredients are there, but are they going to kind of line up perfectly to create this big outbreak on Saturday? That's the question. But watching anywhere from the Ohio Valley all the way down to the Gulf, but I think really Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, even portions of Georgia and down into the Florida Panhandle, and even down into Louisiana, I think that's the bullseye for the worst of it on Saturday, tornado-wise at least. And then that kind of pulls on up, and check it out by Sunday afternoon. Yeah, another line of storms here into the mid-Atlantic and southeast that once more could be producing severe weather, including the potential of a tornado threat there for Sunday. All right, so what's the complication of the forecast here? Well, it's really coming down to instability. Here's Friday afternoon, and notice anytime you get kind of these blue colors or these more aqua colors down into the purple, that's where instability is generally high enough at the surface for severe weather. You start getting into more of the greens, a little less so. And where we have the strongest wind energy on Friday is kind of in this area, circled in pink, but where we have the highest instability, that's kind of down here in the black circle. So you notice they're separated a little bit. I think that's why Friday will definitely have severe weather, but I think Saturday will be the bigger deal, because watch what happens Saturday afternoon. We get a much more vigorous warm sector and moist sector. And again, remember, our low pressure at this point is centered basically right here. So we've got the highest wind energy now overlapping directly with the instability on Saturday. And that's why it's jumping out to me as kind of the biggest threat day of this. And then you get into Sunday, another day where we've got a pretty good moist sector here, dew points all the way into the 60s, even the mid 60s here through much of the mid-Atlantic, and a lot of wind energy still left over. So that could be another troublesome day for Sunday. Now let's do a little bit more in-depth meteorology. I showed this map yesterday, so if you missed it, I'll quickly explain it again. You see these kind of pockets of shaded colors. This is our Cape value. These are our thunderstorm fuel numbers. Obviously, the more shading you see or the brighter colors, the more instability there is. And then you see all these little kind of things with the wind barbs. That is wind at the surface in red, so where it's coming from and at what speed. And then 850 millibars, that's about our low-level jet height in the blue. And then our black kind of wind barb there is our mid-level jet, or kind of even closer to upper-level jet a little bit there below. So anytime that you see these kind of wind barbs doing something like this, and I'll kind of do it in the colors where they're kind of turning with height, that's a sign that we've got a good amount of wind shear. So anytime you see something that looks generally like this overlapping with the shaded area, that means we've got the kinematic and thermodynamic support for severe weather. This is for Friday afternoon. I think it's going to be a bit of a bimodal setup. I think we're going to have a northern range setup and then a southern range. And if we kind of take a quick sounding, and again, a little pressed on time today, so not going to go super in depth on the soundings here. But this is for Friday. I mean, we've just got a ton of wind energy up to the north. Look at this photograph. It's got that big classic supercellular looping look to it. The limiting factor, though, is over here on the left-hand side. This is our kind of skew T log P diagram. And basically, it's just that surface instability. It's at 53 degrees Fahrenheit for dew point, surface temperature around 70. That means your LCL, or your lifted condensation level, and your level of free convection are pretty high up, and that tells me these are going to be pretty elevated storms. So wind and hail definitely, I think, going to be something to watch for Friday. Just a little bit less of a tornado threat whenever you have such a high LCL. It's a little bit harder to stretch the vorticity down to the surface. Now that's the northern kind of side of things on Friday. If we look a little bit further south down towards Louisiana, you notice the photograph a little bit less exciting, still has a supercellular look to it, but our thermodynamics are much more impressive. A much lower LCL and LFC. Cape values higher, around 2,000 joules per kilogram compared to about 1,000 further north. Also, we have a very little cap down here, so I think we'll still get storms to fire, even though the models didn't really show it so much earlier on. So that's for Friday. Now let's move it into Saturday, and you notice this is when things get a little bit more serious. We've got a lot higher instability down south. Also notice some instability creeping up into Ohio and Kentucky. I think up north here through Ohio, Kentucky, if we take a quick sounding kind of in that region and get a look at it, yeah, we've got definitely enough shear for severe storms. Probably, I would say, looking at this, definitely a tornado threat. However, probably a little bit more of a wind and hail threat. You look further south, though, and we take a sounding over the heart of Dixie Alley for Saturday afternoon. I mean, folks, that is just a pretty ridiculous wind profile and a very ridiculous thermodynamic profile. So you get those two together. That's why I'm concerned about a tornado outbreak on Saturday should the environment allow for it. And obviously the numbers here say it will, but at the end of the day, we'll see what actually ends up happening. And then we get into Sunday afternoon here below. Again, you notice a lot less instability, but still enough, combined with some turning of height or turning of wind with the height. That could again see a tornado threat on Sunday, probably just less so on the instability compared to Saturday. So that's kind of the severe weather threat from the kind of models there. Let's take a look now at what the Storm Prediction Center is saying and give you the latest here. So this is for Friday. Big enhanced risk. That's a level 3 out of 5 threat from St. Louis, Bloomington, all the way through Burlington down to Jackson, Memphis, and then you kind of get anyone has a shot of severe weather from the Twin Cities all the way down to New Orleans. So you can see how big the threat area is for day 3. It's going to be a little bit of everything. Tornadoes, wind, hail, I think will be all concerns that day. And then you go to day 4, and you can kind of see, again, another threat area, this time from Cleveland and Pittsburgh all the way down to the Gulf. But notice the height of it, or the worst of it, likely to be in Dixie Alley, Mississippi, Alabama, even potentially into Georgia, down through the Florida Panhandle and into Louisiana. And then even that threat area by the evening and overnight of Saturday getting all the way up into the upstate of South Carolina, western North Carolina, potentially the Virginias, at least West Virginia and southwestern Virginia, Kentucky in the threat area for Saturday. Then you get to Sunday, anyone from really northern Jersey all the way down to the Panhandle and Big Bend of Florida could see severe weather by the time we get to the end of the week. All right. Final thing we'll talk about are the winter side of things. Notice a lot of snow in the Rockies on the way. I can guarantee you that. I mean, we're going to be counting it in feet here into California, into the Sierra Nevadas. I mean, 45 inches of snow. Yeah, I think that's enough for ski lovers out there. Really, just anybody in the Rockies is going to get a lot of it, but the Cascades down through the Sierra Nevada is going to get the brunt of it, and then around a foot or so in the higher peaks into the Rockies itself. And then kind of, again, the western range is going to see the most. Then you see another little kind of burst of snowfall here into the Dakotas, back into Minnesota. A snowfall average of about, 3 to 5 inches in this region. Not a lot of snow, but then you combine that with the potential of the strong wind threat, and it becomes a little bit more worrisome. So we'll take a look at that here on the European. These are max wind gusts within a 6-hour time frame. Check it out for Thursday afternoon. Starts to really get windy down into the Four Corners. And then Friday afternoon, we've got just crazy wind here. And these are the max wind gusts, so these are not sustained winds. This will be basically the worst of it that you see during the event. We're gusting near 80 miles an hour into portions of New Mexico coming down off the Rockies. That downsloping wind going to go pretty crazy here, I think. And another reason why we have that fire danger threat. Super strong winds and a very dry wind as well. That kind of works on through for Friday. And then check it out Friday evening. Everyone really gets on the fun. And then by the time the snow is picking up north, we've got winds gusting near 40, 50 miles an hour. That's enough to cause at least blizzard-like conditions, even if not blizzard conditions itself. In that region, and it stays pretty windy into the Ohio Valley, into the Midwest. Gets quite windy down south. Check it out overnight Saturday. A likely squall line left over from whatever storms form during the day on Saturday. Gets into areas of eastern Tennessee, northern Alabama, Georgia, into the Appalachia chain. North Carolina, watch out. I know Helene's still on your mind there. Could be a really windy Saturday night into Sunday. Then just stays windy Sunday afternoon through the mid-Atlantic, up into the Northeast. And then by the time we get to Monday afternoon, beginning to clear out a little bit and should be a bit nicer. Final thing are temperatures. If I have the right map pulled up, I'll have to pull it up on the fly here. All right, so that'll work. This afternoon, again, above average for just about everyone. It's about as nice as it gets for March. Same thing tomorrow, above average temperatures. Starts to cool down out west as that storm system moves in. Friday, the kind of nation divided begins. Warm east of the Rockies, cold out west. And then Saturday, more the same. As the storm pushes east, that warm air pushes east with it. So does the cold air. And I do think by the time we get to early next week, here's next Monday, a little bit of a cool down behind the storm. But then in the long range, kind of warming back up again by later next week. And then another shot of maybe chillier air around day 10. Alrighty, folks, I know this was a shorter video. I've got an 8 a.m. doctor's appointment and then a test at 10 a.m. So I kind of had to wake up early and compress this one. So I apologize if it was, fast-paced and a little bit shorter, but I think we still got a lot of good info in during that time frame. All right, y'all have a good one. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all next time.